38. The rider to watch, the rider to beat. Can they do it? Let's go. True phenom, been winning at every level, every step. And Haiden Deegan is the 250 National Motocross Champion. Strong to the end, unbelievable. 5 straight overall wins. Chase Sexton conquers Bugs Creek.
Yeah, SMX Insider coming your way. We are ready for the final round of the Pro Motocross Championship, round 28 of the SMX World Championship, where the Jasons, Weigandt and Thomas, but already a big mile marker throughout this 31-round season. JT Haiden Deegan now is the 250 Pro Motocross Champion, which is a big deal. I think what you and I are trying to figure out is how big of a deal is it? I feel that unlike some 250 riders who look at this as a massive crowning achievement, Deegans maybe just look at this as a rung on the ladder toward even bigger goals. But you were down there at the end of the race. What was the vibe that you're getting from that camp?
Well, as in most things with life, perspective is everything. And I think that his father, Brian Deegan, who used to race this 125 Pro Motocross class when it was 125, he knows what this means for Haiden, he'll look back for decades and think about this achievement. But I think for Haiden, his goals are still in front of him. I think he's looking at what the SuperMotocross World Championship playoffs will be, what his 450 career will be. But it's one of those things where when he gets older, when he gains more perspective on the accomplishments like this, he will understand what it means. So it was interesting to me to see the contrast of those two. But make no mistake, anyone who has ever lined up for these Pro Motocross Championship races, you know what this means. He is the best 250 motocross racer that this country has to offer, and that's saying something.
Yep, and he will be back for 250 Supercross next year. We'll see what the trajectory is from there. And of course, SMX looming for everyone. So we're going to talk about that quite a bit on the show. Also, Chase Sexton rolling and maybe clinching a 450 Pro Motocross title that probably a lot of people didn't see coming when you think about how his season started with the switch to Red Bull KTM back in the winter time. And now he's on the precipice of a big one and then maybe more in the playoffs. So lots to talk about here. Also including the fact that this Pro Motocross finale, we're going to give you a chance to listen and watch the Spanish broadcast inside the United States, which we don't get to do very often. So here's our big interview. This weekend you can watch on Telemundo Deportes YouTube channel. These two gentlemen, Edgar and Tommy. Edgar, I've talked to you many times. You've covered so many different sports, Olympics, NFL, NBA, now this, and we're in the meetings together. You love covering SMX.
You know what? It's my first time covering SMX, and it's thrilling. It's nerve-wracking. It keeps you at the edge of your seat the entire race because anything can happen, and that to me is what's so exciting about the sport. I mean, pretty much you see basketball, NBA, baseball, and everything else. You pretty much know that is what's going to happen. You got a pattern. There's no pattern here when those gates go down and these people are racing at full speed and making those jumps and making those curves and just trying to avoid hitting each other. And then, of course, when an accident happened, how do they recover? How do they come back? I mean, we see amazing comebacks. I mean, Chase Sexton is one of the ones that comes to my mind, out in last place and coming back and finish and winning a race. That was absolutely out of this planet.
Yeah, and Tommy, what's interesting, I think a lot of the Spanish-speaking riders that we know of, they all speak English fairly well if they're interviews or whatnot. But I think you've told me the families and their fans, maybe they don't necessarily. Didn't you say there were people who used to watch and listen to the English broadcast and have no clue what was being said?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, right, they're watching their own families race, compete. We see so many times in the sport, the kids come here from a young age. They train their whole life. They learn the language, but they move away from their families. And then they get to the highest level of the sport, which is SMX. And, the broadcast is only in English. They try to watch their kids or their family members, and maybe they don't quite understand what's going on. And I've had this interaction so many times, not only with, riders of this sport, but I was just at a MotoGP race in Europe, and close assistant of Marc Marquez, one of the best Spanish riders ever of the sport, was telling me like, hey, I recognize you. I'm a huge fan of the sport. And I've been watching you in Spanish because, I love it, but I've been watching it in English this whole time. So now I get to understand what's going on, and I love the passion and the culture that you and Edgar get to bring to the sport. So moments like that for me are super special. And of course, sharing the booth with Edgar, someone with so much experience, has been infinitely beneficial to me and to the broadcast as well.
Jason, this is what we do when the race is on the line and start ready to go. So I go like this. Ya los pilotos están en el partidero, están preparándose, ajustándose los guantes, están enfocados y ya se está saliendo la modelo y están comenzando acelerando y ya están en carrera, doblando la primera peligrosa curva. ¿Y quién toma el comando de la carrera, señor Rios?
I told you, folks. I won't be upset if you want to tune in for Ironman. Also, the SMX World Championship finale from Las Vegas will be on Telemundo Deportes. So if you want to switch over and listen to these two guys to hear something like that for a few minutes, it won't bother me. Just talk about, as a lifelong fan of this sport, what that means to have that additional layer of coverage for those two races.
Well, personally for me, it's huge, right? My whole family is Hispanic, Peruvian, and Mexican descent. So for me personally, it's huge. I know what this broadcast is capable of, the audience that it can reach. And I'm just so proud of our production team, right? Just from where we started to where we are now. I think we've blown expectations out of the water. Everything from doing on-camera segments of Edgar and myself, doing interviews with Hispanic riders, doing our own little features and segments. I think all of this was just blown out of the water from the production team. So it's a huge step forward, and I'm super excited to show it to the Telemundo Deportes broadcast.
Yeah, we're proud of it. Good work on your end as well to make this as fun and exciting as it is. American fans, be sure to tune in. That'll be Ironman Pro Motocross Championship finale and the SMX World Championship finale at Las Vegas. Telemundo Deportes. Enjoy a race call that's pretty darn exciting, maybe even better than anything I can come up with. I'm just being honest here in any language. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Acelerando!
And now a good time to remind you of how, when, where, we don't need to tell you why, to watch Ironman this weekend, the final round of the Pro Motocross Championship. Edgar and Tommy's show, you can watch that on Telemundo Deportes YouTube channel if you want to hear what the Spanish broadcast is like. It's pretty cool. Even if you don't speak Spanish, you might want to listen for a few minutes. Pretty fun, as you can tell, with those two. Our show, Race Day Live, presented by motorsport.com, will start at 10 a.m. East. You can watch it on Peacock or the SMX Video Pass. And then the motos start at 1 o'clock. And reminder, we always roll straight into the SMX Insider post-race show. JT, we finally got to show the world what these title celebrations look like with Deegan. Somebody's going to win the 450 championship this weekend, so you don't want to miss this weekend's post-race show.
Yeah, that's where all the celebrations go down, right? We're limited on what we can show during the actual broadcast, but these post-race celebrations and in our post-show, we get to really get behind the scenes and show these things. I got sprayed with champagne. I got hit in the face with confetti. I was there when they were trying to blow up a motorcycle. All those things that you don't typically get to see, we're going to bring them to you.
And now time for the 30-second board. Let's roll out some of the hot topics. We, again, visit this championship with Haiden Deegan. And what blows my mind the most is actually Deegan. JT, when we first heard about this kid on YouTube, he was doing backflips at 10 years old. His dad is like a freestyle legend. But what's really funny is, to me, Deegan's strength is fitness and consistency, not spectacular. He does some spectacular things, but to me, it's probably the opposite of the way people thought this would look.
Yeah, the kid is gritty, right? He looks like and I would think you have to say he's the fittest rider in this class. When the conditions are the most difficult, that's when he shines. And yes, to your point, when you look at the opportunities he's been given along the way and his dad kind of going and blazing his own path, it's just not something we would have associated with Haiden Deegan. And I think he has bucked that trend and he is doing it the right way. Even his harshest critics have to just kind of sit up and say, hey, man, he's the real deal.
Yeah, he is not afraid to put in the work and to keep trying to get better. And that's what makes it exciting, even going forward into the 450s, whenever that happens, maybe a year or two. Let's go to the other riders in the SMX standings. This will be what the seeding would conceivably look like when the playoffs begin. Deegan is going to be the number 1 seed. Kitchen, Vial, that's not a surprise. Shimoda got surgery on the collarbone. He might be back for Charlotte. That's a big might. Collarbones, it's all over the map, how quickly you can heal. More on that later when we talk about Nate Thrasher, who is somehow still 20th. And these are the riders that are in. Something interesting you pointed out, JT, is that Cameron McAdoo, I think he's 23rd. So he would be in the LCQ, but we're pretty sure he's going to come back. That's a tough road, but at least he's going to try it.
Yeah, I think a guy that can win, he can win this championship if all things were equal, right? And he's going to have to, at each round, go through the LCQ. And remember, even though the likelihood of him getting in through those LCQs is pretty high, he's then going to have one of the last gate picks for each of those motos in each playoff round. So it's a really, really tough road for him to go. But hey, this is a guy that won Monster Energy Supercross rounds, and he's taking advantage of that rule that will get him into those LCQs.
Now let's transition to the 450 class. Chase Sexton, a huge points lead going into Ironman, and he's won 5 in a row, and that's just the data. And in the interest of media fairness, that's what we play up. 5 overall wins in a row and a 28-point lead is legit. He made some mistakes, you can see there, but he's still getting the job done. What's difficult for us, JT, is that we know there's a lot of riders on the sidelines, starting with Jet Lawrence, but we can only extrapolate what we're seeing at the races. Jet himself might be watching these races saying, he's only winning because I'm not there. We don't know. So let's just put Sexton in the position he's in. He's dominating right now. What does this mean when these guys eventually come back, which could start in the SMX playoffs?
Well, that's literally the million-dollar question, and one we will get answers to. But let's look at what Chase Sexton was accomplishing. You know, Jet wasn't 100%. He had that huge crash at Hangtown, but ever since then, Chase had been knocking on the door and even kind of knocking the door down a couple of times. You look at his ability to pass him at High Point, didn't finish the job. His ability to finish the job at Southwick, and that was kind of the last time we saw Jet. So I think Chase is looking at it like, would I win every moto? Maybe not. But in those second motos, I've already proved that I'm the fittest guy, and good luck to anybody else dealing with me. Think about that Unadilla ride. Think about the charge he put on at Budds Creek. I think Chase Sexton's kind of found his rhythm again, and especially when you look at these Moto 2 performances, you look at what he's able to do when he leans into his strengths, that fitness aspect of racing that he has really he's found the key, right? And I think that was the whole thing. He needed to find an angle, whether it was Jet Lawrence, whoever. Hunter Lawrence has obviously stepped up this year. What can I do better than everybody else? He's proved that he is the fittest guy. When it's the hottest day on the roughest track and everybody's feeling the burn, guess what? Chase Sexton has more to give in those moments. And even the motos where we didn't think a comeback was possible, a la Budds Creek, he cuts leads down to nothing in no time flat. So we're going to see what that looks like in the playoffs, where everybody else is coming in with their own asterisk. He's coming in at full strength and with a boatload of confidence. And I think the setup for him, based off of those second motos and what he's been able to do to these guys, it sets up really nicely for him.
Yeah, he's definitely rolling right now. We could only be talking about how big this would be to win the 450 Pro Motocross title. But for the overall look of how the 450 class looks, SMX, Supercross, Motocross, all of it, that's really where he's making even the biggest gains. I'd say that even more than just this individual title that he might end up winning this weekend. But you caught this on social media Saturday morning. You said, I want to put this in the broadcast. Looks like Jet Lawrence is back on a bike.
Yeah, and it was earlier than I thought. And even though it's earlier, it's still going to be a very limited amount of time that we have for Jet Lawrence to be back, right? You think about 3 full weeks of riding before he shows up at Charlotte and has to contend and defend that SuperMotocross World Championship. And yes, I think he'll be fast, but the preparation level is a whole different thing. Now, I will compare and contrast that to Cooper Webb, who had so much more time than this. We thought he would come in and kind of be in the mix. He showed us at Unadilla that he needed more preparation time. Unfortunately, he re-injured that thumb. We'll see what that looks like. But I'm a little nervous for what Jet will look like in Charlotte. We know he's another worldly talent, but preparation is a very underrated thing, and he's not going to have much of it.
Yeah, I counted it. It'd basically be the 9th week since the thumb surgery that we'd be heading into Charlotte. And that's like a 6 to 8 week injury as it is, let alone to get enough time and training on the motorcycle. So that is going to be tough. That's your whole point with Sexton. He's kind of got these guys on the back foot. Let's go back to the 250 class. Deegan winning the title and dominating the first moto, that takes all the headlines. But let's not take away from the 2 overall wins in a row and 3 out of the last 4 for Levi Kitchen.
Yeah, he's really found some momentum, and it's almost like Washougal never happened. But the rest of these have been fantastic. He looks like the guy that we watched in Monster Energy Supercross contending for a title. Even this weekend, he was sick, under the weather. He really showed that in the first moto, and then somehow he found the strength to not only hold off a Chance Hymas, but actually pull away a little bit. So it has to feel great for Levi Kitchen, and he's really getting hot at the right time. Doesn't matter what sport you're in, you can do great things if you get momentum at the right time of the season, and Levi Kitchen has a lot of that right now.
All right, let's take a break from our topics and go into our SMX medical update. We have the good doctor, Dr. Joe McGinley, with us. We're going to talk collarbones, which are almost always a hot topic in the world of SMX, but specifically Nate Thrasher, who has seemingly been out forever with a collarbone injury, which I think, Joe, most people are going to say, why is it taking so long? So explain why it's different one rider to another.
Yeah, collarbone or clavicle fractures are frequent in motocross racing. I've seen it probably in most riders that have come out to our clinic. At some point in their career, they've had a broken clavicle. We saw Joe Shimoda just fractured his recently. Everyone has heard about Cody Schock in the Supercross season when he injured his and was back a week later. Nate Thrasher's a little bit different. He came out to see me. We treated him for arm pump, and when he was out here, we took a look at his shoulder. It was bothering him. He had a practice crash earlier that week. When we got the x-rays of the shoulder, we'll show you here in a second, it was a very surprising finding. He re-injured that clavicle, and he already had 2 plates. So those plates are bent almost at 90 degrees, and he re-injured that clavicle. So a bit different situation having prior surgeries and then re-injuring the clavicle.
But what are you advising them? Like, hey, this can go wrong. These are the things that you need to be worried about rushing this.
With Nate Thrasher, different situation. He had 2 prior clavicle fractures and 2 prior surgeries. And you saw in that x-ray, there were 2 plates on that bone. Unfortunately, he developed a very low-lying infection along that fracture site, so the bone actually never healed. So his clavicle was solely being held together by those plates. Then when he wrecked in that practice crash, those plates bent, and he had to go back in for a much more significant surgery to remove that hardware, get everything realigned and cleaned up. And then unfortunately, he was on antibiotics afterwards to try to clear out that infection.
All right, thanks, Doc. We'll be back with some more of this because there's always injuries to discuss, unfortunately. So thanks for the info. Now back to 30 board. Obviously, Eli Tomac, a topic, the 4-time 450 motocross champ, finally returning to the series for the first time since 2022. He missed a lot of time with injury. Now look, I know he finished 11th in the second moto, and that is way, 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 way below the typical Eli Tomac standard. But I actually didn't think the weekend was that bad. His goal was to be around the podium. If you take Moto 2 out, I think he was just tired from the break. Everything else, he was like the 4th best guy. Qualifying, first moto. I think that's okay for your first race back.
Yeah, it's funny for me, the qualifying sessions and the first moto were better than I expected. I didn't think with short preparation time that he would be that good, on pace, fit, be able to not only pull away from Jason Anderson, but actually close a little bit on Aaron Plessinger. That was a surprise to me. The second moto was maybe a little bit worse than I expected. I didn't think he would end up 11th, but to your point, I just think the day caught up with him.
One more bit of news that dropped this week. We just found out Eli Tomac has now officially re-signed with the Monster Energy Yamaha Star Racing team for 2025. We did expect him to go back there, but what is cool is that they've already announced this is for the full season. Monster Energy Supercross, Pro Motocross, and the SMX Playoffs and World Championship next year. Eli had started the previous 2 seasons saying Supercross for sure, and then maybe Motocross and maybe SMX after that. Now he's already decided he's in for the full season, and it's also worth noting, he says this will be the final year of his career, 2025. We'll move to Ken Roczen as our next topic. Remember Ken Roczen when he showed up at High Point last year, almost won, and I think we're like, oh, we're going to get that again at Unadilla. But again, he's coming back from an injury early. Now he's in 2 more weeks. He's going to race again at Ironman, but with a significant twist in the 250 class. At Unadilla, we asked him why he's doing this.
It's just a for fun thing, honestly. Like, I haven't ridden a 250 in so long, and especially on Suzuki. I think last time was maybe like 2010 or something like that. So it was just a fun decision that I made and basically asked my team. And it took a little bit of work, of course, but yeah, it was purely out of joy.
Well, this is it. We want to pitch it as a Ken Roczen versus Haiden Deegan battle, but honestly, JT, you and I have gone back and forth for like a million hours on all these different podcasts and shows. There is no possible way to truly know what we're going to get out of Ken Roczen on a 250. It's just a guess at this point.
Well, of all the things on my bingo card that I expected to see, Ken Roczen on a 250 in 2024 was not it. But I am so here for this. This is awesome, right? we have a championship already crowned. I felt like the weekend we could have gone in a little bit subdued. Just the excitement had kind of left the series. But oh no, Ken Roczen on a 250 for the first time in a very long time. It's going to be great. I don't have any preconceived notions of how he's going to do. I think the package is going to be okay. You know, he's going to lean on a lot of the development that the BarX Suzuki team has done. So I think the motorcycle will be fairly competitive. Now, will it be on the same level that Haiden Deegan's Yamaha is? Probably not. But I think just having him out there for fun with really no expectation, no pressure, it's a win for everybody. This is an awesome thing to have happen to the sport.
Yeah, that's going to be hard to predict, and that's what makes it fun to watch. And part of the reason Roczen can do this, when you look at the SMX playoff standings, what's cool is he had already looked it up and realized he can't really move up or down with one more race on a 450. So why not just have some fun? And when we show you the points, there's a couple things that you want to note. And really, Sexton's already wrapped up the #1 seed. We'll get a little further into the details and some other spots with Clinton Fowler and SMX Facts later. We just want to point out that battle to get in. And that's kind of stabilized a little bit. Dean Wilson showed up at Budds Creek, but it did not go well for him. But if you look at this group of like Welton and Harlan and Nicoletti and Koulas and a lot of these guys, they can jump 2 or 3 spots real quick this weekend. And 2 or 3 points might be 10 grand or something by the time we're done in Las Vegas.
It absolutely can be. And poor Dino, he's going up against the Chiz, right? And you should just know better. You should know better that that is an immovable force that you're not going to be able to do anything with. And Chisholm is going to be in. You know, it's an awesome thing at his age to be a part of this thing and still just proving people wrong. That's what Chiz does. But this battle, these things never happened before last season. This is a whole new dynamic for these riders, and Dino's moving heaven and earth, traveling from continent to continent, trying to show up to make it to this. I have been told he will be in all of those LCQs, even though he's not going to get that secured spot. He's coming anyway, which is a great thing for the sport. So yes, to your point about the points and what they matter, we talked to Phil Nicoletti, and he absolutely considers that as costing him money last year. Not doing better in Pro Motocross cost him money because he was very close to jumping up positions in the final standings after the LA Coliseum. So if you wonder, do they care? Are they just trying to get in? Oh no, those extra points can cost them tens of thousands of dollars, just like you mentioned.
Yeah, I think Phil literally said he thinks he could have made $35,000 more if he had had more seeding points, but instead he went to the LCQ. And Colt Nichols was the master last year. He made about $100,000 because he really peaked at the right time, just got in, really did well at the 3 races. That's what's on the line for these privateer type riders. And on the completely different end of the spectrum, a lot coming up at Ironman. There will be a Scouting Moto Combine event on Friday, but not in it will be Drew Adams, the new AMA Nicky Hayden Horizon Award winner from Loretta's, the best rider transitioning to the pros. We saw great performances from him in Supercross Futures early in the year, so it's time to brace pro for real. He'll be in the 250 class at Ironman.
Yeah, it should be fun. I mean, he has really dominated the amateur scene, whether it was Futures or the Combine. You know, he raced in Canada quite a bit this summer as well, so it's going to be fun to watch him line up for real with the best 250 riders in the country and just see where he stacks up.
Yeah, we'll have more data on pro debuts of the past and maybe what to think about with Adams, with Clinton Fowler and SMX Facts later. As for that Combine, so who becomes the favorite with Adams moving on? I think one name would obviously be Cole Davies, who was a little underwhelming at the Combine at Redbud, had some moments at Loretta's that were good. We know how fast he is in Supercross. He's won multiple Futures races. Here's the name I'm going to say to watch for. Caden Dudney, a B rider for Team Green. He was the best B rider of the week at Loretta's. He had the fastest lap time of the week at Loretta's. Faster than Adams, but when he rode, I think the track was a little bit smoother, so take that for what it's worth. But I would not be surprised at the end of this weekend if people aren't saying maybe Caden Dudney is the next Drew Adams, even though he's just a B rider.
Yeah, I think Cole Davies has the most to prove. He's on the team that's winning the 250 Pro Motocross Championship. He's on the team that, you know, they wheeled Cooper Webb, they wheeled Eli Tomac. It's the team that all these 250 riders seem to want to be on, right? And he has this fantastic opportunity. And we know the leash is very short. The expectations are extremely high at Monster Yamaha Star Racing. So he needs to get it done, right? His biggest competition just exited stage left and moved up. Cole Davies, you have to show up in these moments. We know how these races are judged. Now, Is anything going to happen with his future? No. But I think to continue the story, right, to show that he is on the path to being the guy they expect him to be, days like Saturday, Friday, Saturday, you have to win. You have to win when you're supposed to win.
Hey, there's one other team everyone wants to be on, at least this year, Team USA for the Motocross of Nations. First of all, it's refreshing to have this problem. Too many good riders that want to participate. I think we all know Chase Sexton is a shoo-in. Deegan hasn't really said either way about him racing a 250. You do hear some Chance Hymas chatter in the 250 class if Deegan doesn't go, because Deegan says he's got, I think, get the wrist fixed that he hurt before Supercross, or he might race. But the real position that everyone's buzzing about is the second 450 rider. Will it be Aaron Plessinger? Would it be Justin Cooper? I think Cooper Webb would like to go. He got hurt again at Unadilla. And then, of course, there's Eli Tomac. What do you do here, JT?
For me, if Deegan is willing to go, which someone told me yesterday, he's in. I don't know that to be fact, but again, this is the bench racing we get into. He's a no-brainer if he wants to go. Chase Sexton, no-brainer for, I think, the MX1 spot and kind of that open MX3, MX Open spot. That's where I think the arguments come in. Should it be Justin Cooper? Should it be AP? Are they still considering Eli Tomac? All those things are not decided as far as I know of the week leading up to Ironman. I think we have one more weekend to kind of see what these guys have. But I think the greatest part of all of this is we have riders that want to go in 2024. If we have the best team we can get and everybody wants to go, let the cards fall where they may. I'm good with the rest.
Okay, SMX Facts. Let's bring our statistician Clinton Fowler on. A bit of a controversial one here. You say that Chase Sexton is an unlikely champion. Please explain with the data why that is so.
I'm going to get in trouble for this, but it's meant in goodness. These unlikely because it doesn't happen often that a rider 5 seasons into their 450 Premier Class career wins the title. In the 27 previous champions, it's only happened 3 times. You've got Kent Howerton back in 1980. You've got Greg Albertine in 1999 and Chad Reed in 2009. And now we've got Chase Sexton on the cusp of it. So I refer to him as the unlikely champion because after the first 3 or 4 years in the class, you don't expect to see the title. He's obviously doing great now with 5 overall wins in a row. But what do you think, JT?
2 different ways to look at this. And one of them, I think, keeps me out of trouble, and the other one gets me into trouble. Now, the first one is you could look at the 2022 season and say, hey, he took Eli Tomac down to the final moto. That he was in line to win that championship. He was doing everything right, winning fast, all those things. He just didn't get the job done. So the signs were there that this was going to eventually work out, right? You can logically make that leap. The second one, and this is going to be a very unpopular opinion, is that look at the field and how decimated it is here this summer in 2024. We don't have Eli Tomac. We don't have Cooper Webb. We don't have Ken Roczen. We don't have the defending champion of Jet Lawrence finishing the series. So Chase Sexton could be considered somewhat winning by default. Now, I don't really subscribe to that theory, but someone will, and it needs to be brought to the table. So pick your side. I would lean more towards 2022 showed us that he would eventually be that guy. But then you look at how many injuries we've had this summer, and he's kind of risen to the top somewhat by default.
Next topic, at the beginning stages of a pro career, is Drew Adams making his debut this weekend in the 250 class at the Ironman Pro Motocross Finale. So we can already start guessing where he would fit in. Is he top 10? Is he top 5? Is it going to be a disaster? Could he run up front? But Clinton, does it even matter actually how he does in his pro debut?
Well, I'll get to the doesn't matter. I don't think it does. But first, I do want to say Drew Adams has had an impressive amateur career. He won the scouting combine, back in Redbud. He's had 3 SX Futures wins. He's got 6 Loretta Lynn's amateur national titles to his name, including 2 this year in the Horizon Award. I think back to the Supercross Futures race at St. Louis. He was absolutely dominant there. It was an impressive ride. He had just turned 16 years old. So I'm really looking forward to looking at this debut. Back to the original question, Weege. I just don't think it really matters that how he does at his debut as much as it is getting experience. If there's anything to highlight why that's the case, JT, Haiden Deegan in 2022 went 34-24 for 34th overall at Ironman 2022. I mean, that to me tells you it probably doesn't matter ultimately to his success in his professional career.
Yeah, and Chance Hymas, you could also add to that, didn't have a stellar jump to his debut rides. The only thing I would say is that if you come out and you really impress, it's a great thing, right? It almost cements the fact that you're going to make it. But on the other side, if you don't really, I think it's very easy to point to all of the riders, the Ricky Carmichaels and all these guys that struggled in their opening round and say, look, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. They're going to either make it or they won't. These first few motos of their career are not the deciding factor. So I don't really see a big downside. I think the rider should just look at it as an opportunity and 100% a learning process.
One other topic you want to hit this week, Clinton, is these SMX playoff, not bubble battle per se, but we hit it earlier in the show. A lot of riders close as far as the seeding is concerned.
Yeah, there's a couple of battles that are interesting, Leach. In the 250 class, Jordan Smith and Pierce Brown battling for 6th and 7th. There's one seeding point there. But the one for me that really sticks out is the battle between 4th, 5th, and 6th in the 450 class. And that's Justin Cooper, Jet Lawrence, and Aaron Plessinger. Obviously, Jet Lawrence is out. He's going to lose that position. The big one here is for Aaron Plessinger to gain yet another point if he can pick up 7 points on Justin Cooper. To me, that's the place that makes a difference heading into the playoffs.
All right, we're looking forward to it. Clinton, I know you're good at keeping track of the data, but that's a lot of data to keep track of because a lot's going down this weekend at Ironman. This is going to be fun. All right, let's wrap this show up. We have so much to be ready for at Ironman. Here's how you can watch Race Day Live presented by motosport.com at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Saturday. That's 1 hour of qualifying coverage. The motos start at 1 Eastern. You can watch the whole thing on Peacock or the SMX Video Pass outside the United States. Again, stay tuned right through the end of the motos where we'll be able to go to the pits and watch some of the championship celebrations and more. Because as the Pro Motocross Finale, JT, we've got special awards, Rookie of the Year, Team of the Year, Mechanic of the Year. Sometimes they hand out Truck Driver of the Year, maybe Podium Interviewer of the Year, which you will earn because you've got to handle all these awards on the podium. We got a combine. We had WMX Racing on Friday. We got Eli Tomac, Team USA. We talked about that. Drew Adams' debut. There's so much happening this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I love to see all of these hardworking people get recognized and the celebrations that occur afterwards. And if you're one of the fans that you want to see me get sprayed in the face with champagne, this might be your weekend because it's probably going to be unavoidable.
All right, so tune us in. That's this Saturday, Pro Motocross Finale. Chase Sexton looking to wrap up a big title and also build that momentum toward the playoffs, which starts September 7th.